Ladies and gentlemen, it's the hour of 6:30. We'd like to call this meeting to order. Also like to call Mr. Longfeld, who recite the national anthem for us. Thank you, Joel.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons' command. Car ton bras est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you very much, Joel, for being with us again tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's my pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will not have another full council meeting before November 11th. You see, we have displays developed by the museum in front of us tonight. I wonder, before we start, whether I could just call for a moment of silence in honor of our veterans. Thank you very much. Again, I would call the meeting to order and seek a motion to confirm our agenda. Moved by Councillor Bodner, seconded by Councillor Kenny. All those in favor? Carried. Are there any disclosures of interest tonight? There being none, then I ask that the minutes so note. Mr. Aquilina, we have a public hearing under the Planning Act. Please proceed, sir.
Good evening to you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff, and those in attendance this evening. The purpose of this meeting is to consider a proposed initiated amendment by the Planning and Development Department for an amendment to our official plan, more specifically the East Waterfront Secondary Plan. I will give the explanation as to exactly what we're proposing to do when I present Planning and Development Report 2016-170. Method of this meeting tonight was given in accordance with Section 17 and 26 of the Planning Act and Ontario Regulation Regulation 543/06. The notice was posted on our city's website, as well as it appeared in the Niagara This Week on September 29th, 2016. The explanation to be followed this evening, Mr. Mayor, is I will present that planning report, then allow the council to ask me any specific questions. We will then open it up to the public if they wish to address council. I'll give an explanation of notice of the proposed official plan amendment, and then an explanation of when this will be back to council for consideration. If I could ask council to look briefly at the presentation I have. The purpose of this amendment is very straightforward. And if you look at the chart, or actually the map in front of you, what we're looking to do essentially is when I was doing the zoning bylaw for the city, which I'm currently working on, I did notice that in the secondary plan for the East Waterfront area, you will see the yellow is all proposed to be low density residential. The fact of the matter is, majority of the land uses there are not single family homes. That's what low-density residential allows. So the uses that I envision in the future are more of a medium density to higher density. And you will see the yellow area is what is currently right now low density. The red is the mixed use, which allows residential and commercial. And there's 2 blocks down in the orange you will see north of Lake Road, which currently right now are medium density, but those I would like to have as high density. The other thing we would like to change is the land that is west of Welland. It's currently parks and open space. The land is privately owned, and as well it is owned by Transport Canada. Those lands I would like to change from parks and open space to industrial. The other change you'll see at the southeast corner of the map, just adjacent to Lake Road, it's just a name change from the terminology general industrial to industrial. We have no policies on general industrial. Those are the changes. So what we're asking for is the policy to change with respect to medium density, that the density would be 35 to 70 units per hectare. They would then be in conformance with the zoning bylaw that I am presently working on. The high density would have a density range from 70 to 100 units per hectare, and again, be subject to the applicable zoning regulations. As well as the industrial, we will change it from general industrial to industrial, and we currently have right now that there is no outside storage. That will remain, considering the lands adjacent to that are residential. Members of council, that essentially is the proposed amendment before you this evening. The text of what I just indicated was all the density requirements, and that's a general area of the residential densities that I would like to change for that specific area. Mr. Mayor, that concludes my presentation. Very brief, not too many changes to the policies, but those are the changes that I would like to bring forward to council at a future meeting, because again, I'm working on the zoning bylaw for the city, and the existing and proposed uses, I just don't see that in that area, considering we have the provincial policies that are telling us to intensify and to give other opportunities for housing types. Single family does not give many opportunities for different housing development. A medium density would, as well as the higher density, obviously, for apartment type use. Medium density would be singles, semis, duplex, triplex, those types of uses that I envision in that area. Mr. Mayor, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Aquilina. Dan, can you tell me why what prompted the decision to change from parks and open space to industrial on the western side of Welland Street?
In my opinion, it was the lands that we have right now as parks and open space. The land itself is a former salvage yard, scrap metal. I just can't see anyone developing that for parks and open space use. If you are changing that land use, you need to have all the contamination removed from the property. So it's just, I just can't see that land changing to parks and open space. It'd be very costly, and I just can't see it happening.
Okay, thank you for that. I do agree that going to medium density is a good idea for that community, because it is a community that will bear that well. I would have liked to see more of the mixed use, such as your red areas that you have, the residential commercial, or residential commercial mix. I would have liked to see more of that in this community, because it is, the way the community is laid out, it would lend itself to crafters and artists working out of their home and selling out of their home, and that requires the commercial use. For some of those homes already have the storefronts, and they could be brought back to life that way. So possibly you could consider putting a few more pockets in, or...
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Desmarais, the fact of the property being allowed for residential use does not negate the fact that we could have neighborhood commercial type uses on different locations, different corners. Different lands can be used for neighborhood commercial. The zoning bylaw will then outline where those actually will be. And the fact is, home occupations are permitted as well
Okay.
in the residential zones. The fact, when I go back to when the secondary plan was drafted, that's what the consultants at the time envisioned, that mixed use be allowed, be a mixture of commercial and residential.
Okay, so if...
So
if
that's staying, that's not changing.
Okay, that's a good thing. If a property is mid-block in the yellow area, and it has a storefront, then without any extra cost to rezone or to change anything, a new owner could simply set up shop there with a business license.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councilor Desmarais, if it is considered to be a home occupation, we have home occupation provisions presently right now in the zoning bylaw. As long as they follow those provisions, parking is a requirement, proper signage, and certain uses to be considered a home occupation.
Okay, great, thanks. I know there are people watching that want to hear the answer to that, so thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Aquilina? Just a quick question, Mr. Aquilina, on the subject area adjacent to north part, adjacent to the canal. I suppose that the white is the setback from the canal and required by the seaway?
Mr. Mayor, that land is federally owned, except there is Allied Marines property that is within the white. The setback, council may recall through various discussions with Transport Canada, as part of their divestiture plan, that's not changing. Those lands will be remaining as industrial uses and not subject to the secondary plan as you see up on the screen.
How long has the current zoning and our official plan been that designation?
Mr. Mayor, the zoning bylaw for the city was passed on February 25th, 1982. Our official plan replaced an official plan that was in place since 1981.
And to the best of your knowledge, have there been any applications for park or open space on the subject area?
Mr. Mayor, no, there has not been.
Okay, I have no further questions. Anything coming out of my inquiries? There being none, thank you, Mr.
Well,
Aquilina.
Mr. Mayor, we're not yet done.
Okay.
I need to say something before we open it up to the members of the public that may wish to address council. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Port Colborne before the proposed official plan is adopted and approved, the person or public body may not be entitled to appeal the decision of the City of Port Colborne to the Ontario Municipal Board. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the city before the proposed official plan is adopted or approved, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the OMB unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party. This time, Mr. Mayor, I would like to ask if any member of the public is willing to speak and address council or ask myself questions.
There being none indicated, continue, Mr. Aquilina.
Mr. Mayor, there is a sign-in sheet at the back. If any member would like to be notified, you will receive written notice of council's adoption. Would like to read the following again. If a different section of the Planning Act, if you wish to be notified of the adoption of the proposed amendment, you must make written submissions to the clerk. Only those persons and public bodies that give the clerk a written request for the adoption bylaw will be given such notice. Mr. Mayor, this concludes the public meeting of the Planning Act. I will have the recommendation report for your consideration on November 14th. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or concerns? Other than that, I would entertain a motion for adjournment. Moved by Councilor Desmarais, seconded by Councilor Kenny. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you very much. At this stage, I'd like to move on to the regular meeting of Committee of the Whole, 20-16, on Monday, October 24th, following the special meeting of council. Are there any addendum items?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, none this evening.
I entertain a motion to confirm the agenda. Moved by Councillor Butters, seconded by Councillor Danch. All those in favor? Carried. And disclosures of interest this evening. There being none, so noted. Call for the adoption of minutes of the regular meeting of Committee of the Whole 19-16 held on October 11th, 2016. Moved by Councillor Desmarais, seconded by Councillor Kenny. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Move on to determination of items requiring separate disclosure, separate discussion. Yes, Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 5, please.
Item 5. Councillor Main.
Item 3.
Hey, more on my right. To my left. Councillor Rodner.
Item 1, Mr. Mayor.
Item 1. Any others? There be none. Call for any motion. Approval of those items not requiring separate discussion. Moved by Councillor Butters, seconded by Councillor Kenny. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. At this time we have a special presentation to Karen Powell. Karen, could you come forward to the podium here? I would ask CEO Louis to join me. My honor this evening to recognize on behalf of members of City Council, co-workers, and all the citizens of Port Colborne, one of our employees who has served this city for over 25 years. That employee is Karen Powell, immediately to my right here. Karen started her career with the City of Port Colborne in 1991. She was hired on October 24th, exactly 25 years ago today, as a temporary employee in the cashier position. June 8, 1992, Karen filled a maternity leave as a water clerk cashier. January 1st, 1993, Karen was amended to a permanent full-time position as a water clerk cashier. On July 12, 2004, Karen was awarded the tax clerk position, a position she holds to date. In her role as tax clerk, Karen works with our residents to ensure their taxes are paid so programs and services are funded. An important position, that's for sure. As a part of our finance department, Karen has also worked most of our festivals and events in all kinds of weather. Not only is she an employee, in fact, but in heart as well. She even took a break from her desk job one summer and worked for the Parks Department. For our union employees, Karen sits on the executive committee in the role of secretary, keeping everyone organized. Karen, it is quite a milestone to reach 25 years of service to the city, and we thank you for your dedication to us as well. We have a plaque to present, and I would ask CEO Louis if you could make this presentation. And we also have a token of our appreciation.
I can all do the token.
Okay, good.
Vice President.
Whatever.
All right, there you go. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks. Want to get into a picture with all three of us? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen, and thank you for being here this evening.
I appreciate you for recognizing this for me. Thank you.
You're welcome. You deserve it.
Thank you.
Are there any delegations this evening? Clerk, there being none? I'd like to move on to a brief mayor's report. As you well know, we had a visit from the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau. Last Friday was certainly an exciting day in Port Colborne as we welcomed Mr. Trudeau, Prime Minister Trudeau, to our city. Many thanks to MP Van Spadaway for making arrangements for this visit. While the visit was brief, the Prime Minister did get to speak and shake hands with many of our residents, especially our children. Thank you to everyone in the city for making him feel welcome. There are a lot of great photos on Facebook. Please take the time to go look. Canadian Niagara Power have been advising us that they are doing some community outreach, giving individuals a chance to speak one-on-one with representatives from both their customer service and energy efficiency and conservation teams. They will be set up at the Port Care's office at 92 Charlotte on November 18th and December 9th. If you would like to make an appointment to speak with them, please call 905-835-0051, extension 3203. Medical marijuana. You're noted or aware that of another circumstance of a medical marijuana facility in Niagara Lake found to be growing in excess of their allotted licenses. These operations are of grave concern to us here in Port Colborne. We have forwarded our concerns to both Health Canada and the Federal Minister of Health and are still waiting their response on this issue. That concludes my remarks this evening. Mr. Barrett, would you have, or do you have a regional council's report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have one this evening. I'll try to be brief. As always, I wanted to bring this council up to speed on the 2017 capital budget that was approved in principle at the region last week, certainly by the Budget Steering Committee, and then this week likely by council as a whole. It's been approved in principle until final approval in December, but basically some of the highlights include this. Over 125 capital projects slated for 2017. It's over $200 million worth of projects that are tied to council's strategic priorities and are tied to the public engagement that was undertaken this year. $47 million worth to be spent on water and wastewater infrastructure. $26 million in road improvements, including Miller Road. I'm sure councillors from Ward 4 will appreciate. $30 million investment for GO, transit, and $5 million in facilities such as long-term care homes, an additional $8 million for Niagara Regional Housing Capital. Further, I wanted to highlight again to this council that we did have a discussion at our corporate services meeting last week surrounding Niagara Regional Housing property tax exemption. I know it's an item we've kind of kicked around collectively here to let you know that analysis has been undertaken and it'll likely hit this table for your consideration and comments in the near future. I would highlight it wouldn't have a 2017 budget impact if anything is done, but rather 2018, so there's lots of planning time. The impact to the City of Port Colborne, so your budget, if the tax exemption is put through, would be $70,000. So the region, through its housing stock in Port Colborne, pays the city $70,000. One item to consider when it hits is ensuring that money doesn't leave Port Colborne. If we're going to give it back to housing, then somehow tie it to specific funding that remains in Port Colborne through housing supplements or rent subsidies and that sort of thing. Certainly that's an item that I'm going to be pressing when we have the discussion at the regional level. We also had a conversation surrounding the Canada Summer Games final bid. The committee did approve funding so that the Niagara Sports Commission can complete the final bid proposal, which is due January 31st to the federal government, in Ottawa, but it's to the Canada Summer Games. They will decide shortly thereafter if Niagara is successful in the 2021 Canada Summer Games. So that would be great news for all of Niagara if that is the case, but it's something that the region does support and we are working on. And one last item. I believe late last week, it was notified to the public that the region is the first municipality in Ontario to install new leading-edge technology that will enhance the region's ability to divert waste from landfills and produce high-quality end products out of recyclable material. The polystyrene foam densifier compresses large volumes of polystyrene foam collected at both the Blue Box and regional drop-off depots into highly dense stackable blocks which can be turned into new products such as picture frames, decorative moldings, and office supplies, etc. So it is something that the region is proud of, being the first one to do that in Ontario, and yet again is another example of the continuous improvement we're constantly striving for at the region. That's my report this evening, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Mr. Main.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Barrett. I have to ask this. I travel the 406 quite a bit. What's the story on the Burgoyne Bridge?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. The region did hire auditors to take a close, deeper dive look at the issue with respect in particular to how the budget has exploded. And they will be delivering their results and findings next month. So I'm going to hold comment until the experts deliver their results of their investigation. And then I will happily share those results with this council.
That's fair, Dave. Thanks.
Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Barrett. You mentioned in your presentation about you said $8 million for housing. Councillor, is that money going to be used for new builds or to fix? You know, I'm a big one for that. Fix what we have, because you know I'm a big proponent of that, and some of the substandard, because they've become that. You know, so what is that money going to be used for?
Great question. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The $8 million is for improving the existing stock.
Thank you. Thank you.
However, $11 million was approved for 2016 on new stock.
I know.
So $11 million on new stock 2016, $8 million on replacing, repairing existing stock for 2017.
Perfect. Thank you. That's great news. Thank you, Council. Thanks.
Any other questions from any other member of council? Mr. Barrick, if there was a waiver of taxes on regional housing, $70,000 more or less, is there any guarantee that a similar reciprocal amount would come back to the existing housing stock? Is this just a hope?
So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that question. It's still a conversation right now, and there may or should have been some consultation, at least from a staff-to-staff perspective. So I would hope at minimum the treasurer here for the city has been contacted and notified. But what we're trying to do is shift now the conversation to the council level. And I think when the region hears back from the local municipal councils and what they would like to see, that's when the region would deliberate on how the exemption would move forward, whether there's strings attached or not, or they just exempt the regional taxes and not the local municipal ones. So for now, if it's fair, it is the beginning of a conversation now with the analysis of that information. The 70,000 represents about 0.45% levy increase for the local municipality here. So something to consider in conjunction with all the other items throughout your budget process. You may not want to give up the 70,000, but if you do, certainly you want to know exactly where it's going, and I agree with that.
Well, we have no guarantee if we in fact waive that additional tax or in tax. Mr. Sinester, you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have had these discussions at the area treasurers meetings and reviewing the report that actually went to the Corporate Services Committee, and we've provided some of our comments from the treasurer's side of things as to how it's going to affect each municipality. And once the region has deliberated over the report, they're going to be sending it to local municipalities. And so I'll be bringing forward a report at some point in time with that to council to decide, whether or not there's a few different options that they're proposing, and be a decision of council as to which option, if any, council would want to look at, and then that whatever recommendation comes from this council will go back to the region for their consideration moving forward. So we'll definitely be bringing that forward. I believe it's probably going to be in the new year in January that it'll be brought forward from regional council to the local municipalities for discussion purposes. But as far as we've talked about it before, last budget where it was about $67,000 at that time. It's around $70,000 now, almost 0.5%, and that'll be a decision of council as to whether or not we move forward with some type of exemption if that's the case. And I agree that if it is a decision of council to exempt it, at some point you want to those funds to remain in Port Colborne if that's the case. But there's different options that they're looking at, so it'll be all the full report and all the options and everything we brought forward to council at that time, and then for council's decision.
Mr. Barrick, do you anticipate that the regional budget will be finalized before the end of the year?
So thank you, Mr. Mayor. As noted, this conversation would have no impact on the 2017 budget, but rather any decision on the NRH tax exemption would and could impact the 2018 budget planning cycle. So to answer your question, it doesn't impact our 2017 discussions at all.
Very good, thank you. Are there any questions arising out of my questioning? Councillor Doucette?
Not under your questioning, you might.
Okay, go ahead.
Councillor Barrick, I'm just wondering about the work that's supposed to happen on the corner of Wellington and Main. We're still waiting for that. The region is the one in charge, and they're working with our engineering department. Probably Mr. Hansen can give me some kind of an answer, but that was requested way back in the spring, and we're still waiting for it. And the main reason was so that children could get across Main Street safely. And the schools are in, and yet we're still having that difficulty. So I was just wondering if there's some way you, with your position, you can help out. But Mr. Hansen will give us an answer, but maybe the two departments can talk more. I'm concerned about it. We've asked for it for years, and we finally got it in the budget, and nothing's happening. So, Mr. Hansen, maybe.
Mr. Hansen, do you want to make a comment?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. The design's complete. Councillor Doucette, the tenders are out for the work. It's been expedited, and we're anticipating the work will be done in November this year. It was put on the priority list for the region. They've been working on it, and we're hoping to get this done by the end of November.
Okay. Let's hope. Thank you very much for this.
That's good news, Mr. Handel. Thank you. And maybe we can keep our eye open to make sure that that in fact happens at the region, Mr. Barrett. Thank you. Next item, councillors, issues or inquiries. Does anyone have a comment? Mr. Main, Councillor Desmarais, Councillor Butters, Councillor Bodner, Councillor Elliott. Mr. Main.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering if I have permission from the chair to submit my notice of motion under councillors' inquiries. If that's possible, or do I have to wait?
I have to wait to the end of the agenda, sir.
Okay, great. We can do that. Okay. I've got some complaints, Mr. Mayor, and I don't know who can address them. I'm sure there's nobody in council or nobody on staff about the speed on Clarence Street. seeing now that the road is opened, we have people taking the shortcut, get out to the highway quick, and a lot of residents in the area are complaining about the speed. Now I've had 2 or 3 people call me already about it, and I keep telling them that's the Ministry of Transportation sets the limit on areas that aren't signed, if I believe is 50 kilometers. True? So, I mean, you drive anywhere in the urban area, I have not seen a sign, so I don't know if that one warrants a sign or not. But that's basically, is that our road now that we have the sign on the end?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Main, yes, that's our sign. Clarence Street is ours to Cement Road, where it becomes Wainfleet jurisdiction. The road without signage is 50 kilometers an hour. There is a 40-kilometer zone adjacent to St. Pat's School, and that turns back to 50 through the new subdivision to Cement Road.
Okay, thanks, Ron. Their request was for speed bumps, and I don't know whether speed bumps are going to cause. Okay. I mean, I'm only reporting. I'm only the messenger here, Councillor Kenny. And I think it's something new to them because it was a dead-end community before, so you wouldn't really have all that traffic. So it's probably something that NRP is going to have to work on to maybe check the radar. Would you think?
Mr. Mayor, in cases like this where there's a speed concern, we typically notify the NRP and ask them to monitor the area, especially a new road like this opening up. This is going to become a collector arterial road for the city, especially with connection to Highway 3. So we would ask the NRP, and we'd be happy to do that, to just monitor the area in the newer time frame that the road is open now. So we'll try to stay on top of it with them.
Thanks,
but it
Ron.
is an enforcement issue.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you. More?
Oh, I have a whole sheet for it. You know me. Okay, the other one, and I'm through Mr. Mayor to Mr. Sinnes. Has the door ever been fixed, Peter?
They were doing it today. So we're doing it today? This morning.
That was something that was asked last meeting or so, but there is a work order that was put in to fix that door, and I will check to see where that is tomorrow.
I knew you'd get it done.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks, Peter.
They did it today, according to the CEO.
Okay, great. Through Mr. Mayor to Mr. Hanson, I'm glad now that the people are parking off in Mellenby. It was pretty hazardous there for a month or so, as you and I discussed. And I see now there's only maybe 1 or 2 that still park on the road, and everybody else seems to be back in the stoned area. Is there any way we can get those last few people off the road?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the parking that you saw when it got quite congested there was due to the fact the contractor was grading the parking lot for the operations center, and they're getting it ready with stone and curbs now to get the asphalting done in November. So there are a number of vehicles still on Mellenby, and we're going to press them again, I think, to get them down to the parking lot down by the Seaway Park down there, Lock 8 Park. We're not allowing them at any time to park any vehicles, obviously, on the fire department property there, so they have to go all the way down to Lock 8. So we'll press the issue again with them.
Thanks, Ron. I do have one more. I noticed that the Bell, and I know Ron's going to bring it up, about the fiber optics. My complaint about Bell is the terrible job they did remediating in Ward 1, particularly when they did Ward 1. I had lots of people call me up, and I had to tell them that really it's not a city issue because the Bell did it. But when the Bell did come back in, I think you could have got a kindergarten class to do a better job with shovels and sand. When people come into our communities as contractors, I know Bell's a big organization. They can pretty well do what they want. But I wish they'd go to the same standard that everybody else did. Is there any way that we could push Bell into doing a lot better job when they're finished?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, all the work done by Bell and all the other utilities are done through municipal consents, which we have control of. Any work that's done on a municipal road allowance is done on a consent permit. We have the authority to ensure that the reinstatements are done correctly. In some cases, we actually do the reinstatements to ensure that a better quality of work is done through our contractors. So any specific areas like that, and I know some of the ones, I see them every day that you're referring to, we will chase those in terms of the consents and make sure they get reinstated.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, that will be it till this notice of motion time. Thank you very much.
Will you keep us updated on those bill reinstatements, Mr. Hanson?
Yes, I will.
As to when they're done, etc. And we don't have much time left as the winter weather closes in. Fine. Councilor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to give everybody a recap of our East Village Task Force open house that we had on Saturday. It was very well attended. We had a lot of agencies. We had Port Cares, Bridges Community Health Center, Justice Niagara. We had Niagara Regional Police Services. We had our fire services. Our bylaw officer was there. Other representatives of the city, Councillor Doucette, myself, and the mayor were all there. Very, very well attended. Anyone who walked in the door would have someone to answer their issues, regardless of what they were. Except one. One did pop up that there was no one to answer. I will address that in a minute. But it was extremely well attended. Good news story out of this is that obviously the task force efforts are working. One criminal type complaint was made, and that was really a situation where somebody was repeating something they had heard that someone else was saying. So it's not, it wasn't an exacting complaint. So that's a good news. If this had been a year ago, that's all we would have heard. So some good work is being done, and I would thank Niagara Regional again. And Councillor Barrick, I did give him my thanks earlier, but for getting the police board down here and bringing more light to the situation, always really helpful to do that kind of thing. But a great day. The results of the day, though, the question that couldn't be answered was around animals. And it's very clear that we in Port Colborne need to do more work around animal control. Dogs are not being looked after in the way that we need them to be. There's still too many at large, and there's too much aggressive behavior, and it's not being able to be seen to immediately, and that's a problem. There's nothing around cats at all. We have no bylaws around cats. Cats are causing some problems. A lot of the control has been put in place just by taking care of the spaying and the neutering, and the feline people did that, but we're still having a lot of issues. Lots and lots of issues around skunks, rats, mice, raccoons, possums, and coyotes. Those are situations where you would have to go to the ministry, get a trap, come back to your community, trap the animal, take it somewhere, release it, and then take the trap back. Well, for a community, a neighborhood that has some difficulties sometimes, and even just getting across down to a grocery store, that's clearly a problem. And this is not limited to the East Village. These issues around wild animals are everywhere in Port Colborne. I would like to suggest that we create some kind of a working group, councillors and maybe some staff members, possibly the Well and Humane as well, get together and see what we can do about wrapping our minds around what can be done, what kind of bylaws would be effective. It might be the result may be that we can do nothing more, but I would like to see that. I'd also like to see an accounting of how much we pay the Humane Society and what do we get for those dollars. I really would like to understand that better so that we can tackle the whole problem. So that did come out of the East Village meeting, but I know that it exists other places. Going on from there, though, we also found that there is a need to go out and look for specific jobs to come to Port Colborne. We know the groups, the sectors that need jobs and their skills. We need to match those skills to the jobs. So we're going to, I'm going to meet with some people at Port Cares. We're going to go and speak to our economic development officer and see what we can do around that. And also the seniors group came with the same situation, so we'll match those needs in there as well. So that came out of the meeting. There are 27 active files that the bylaw department is working on now, just in the East Village. That's 10% of the properties in the East Village. That's quite a lot. So our city is certainly doing its job, no question. The rest of the problems that were brought in were having to do with roads, sidewalks, stormwater, drainage, that sort of thing, lot maintenance, property standards, some noise. a lot of substandard housing issues, rental problems, and a rental housing inventory will help with that. And I know that somebody at Bridges is working on putting something like that together too. So that and the need to improve communications with people. Whenever any of our staff or any of us councillors are dealing with a person in the public, we need to set the proper expectations, get back to people in a timely manner, and let them know what to expect and when to expect it. That takes away probably 60% of the problems that come later, just by doing that. So those are important things. But all in all, it was a great day, and I do thank everyone that was involved. And just, again, the East Village is really coming along, and that's what we wanted it to do. So the work is getting done. The only other note I have is that Councillor Doucette have our semi-annual ward meeting coming up on November 23rd. We'll be doing this at Tim Hortons, and it'll be a come in, sit with one of us, tell us your issues, and leave, and next person takes the spot. It's not an actual meeting. It's more like we'll set up existence there and see what happens for the night. But that's what that's. So we'll speak about it again as we come closer to it. But that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Demery. Mr. Sinnes, as referenced in Councillor Demery's comments, are you in a position to tell us what the SPCA gives as a monthly stipend and what they do for that stipend? Mr. Aquilina, I guess you're the gentleman.
Mr. Mayor, and don't quote me, it's one of two figures. In my head, I have $146,000 annually, or it may be $160,000. If I look on my phone, I can reply back to council. And one of the things that we'll be addressing as part of the review of the dog bylaw, other possible options that council may want to explore.
What the job description of SPCA for Port Colborne? What do they do for their stipend?
Mr. Mayor, what they do is they enforce our dog bylaw.
Okay.
And that dog bylaw is a comprehensive bylaw, but it only deals with dogs.
Doesn't deal with cats.
And what they do is they also manage the animal shelter for us.
Okay.
But the report we'll bring forward will actually give more details of what they actually do.
When do we anticipate receiving that report?
Mr. Mayor, right now I have the senior supervisor of bylaw enforcement working on the report. Unfortunately, she's not able to work right now due to an injury, but that's on her to-do list when she gets back. She's expected to be back within 4 to 6 to 8 weeks. And I suspect that back to council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Both of mine are for Mr. Hansen. So through you to Mr. Hansen. The first one is to do with the Wildwood gates at the road allowance to the beach. And a few weeks ago, we had a conversation about the gates being left open, and I know you were going to talk to some of your staff and see if something better could be devised in terms of those gates. Apparently, they were open again all this past weekend. I understand that perhaps someone picked up that key and maybe there's work going on at the beach, but if there wasn't, then we still have an ongoing difficulty with the gates being left open, and obviously the issue of liability for the city of Port Colborne. So I wonder if you could update me on that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and Councillor Butters. Yes, when we had our last conversation, I had our staff actually close the gate again. It's been an ongoing problem. There are a number of keys that are out there with the residents. There's a policy in place where someone can come in to City Hall, sign out for a key, access the Wildwood gates to do work on their properties along the beach, and then supposedly come back, lock the gate up, and bring the key back. So the keys have been out there for a while. We've changed the locks quite a number of times over the years. And I think after talking to Councillor Butters the last time, what we've talked about doing is, again, reviewing this policy about the gate and trying to determine if there's a better way to actually manage this, whether it be taking the gate away or putting new locks on or having a more strict control, a charge on the key that's more incumbent on the person to return the key and make sure the gate's closed. So all those things are into consideration. I think we'll have to come back to council with a report to let council discuss the best way perhaps to deal with the gate itself and the ongoing problems.
Thank you. I thought at one point when somebody got a key, then they had to put like a $50, was it a $50 deposit, Ron, or something in that nature for them to be able to encourage them to bring back that key. Because right now, you know, when those gates are open, the 4x4s are going down there, people with ATVs. It's a really not a good situation at all. Now with winter coming up, there's obviously the idea of a really good possibility somebody can go back in there with the right kind of vehicle and prime target for thieves and robbers on cottages that maybe aren't occupied too much. So it really is kind of important, I think, to security and safety. And I mean, and then in the summertime, people do use that beach in that neighborhood. And if you got ATVs running around when there's, you know, kids and families down there with their beach blankets, that's just bad all the way around. So hopefully in the next, I mean, do we know who have the keys right now? Can we actually get those keys back, get those gates locked? Because, and then if anybody has work to do, granted, I get, you know, sometimes you need access to that side of your property. Can we get the keys back in that are currently out?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Butters, yes, we have a list of the keys that were distributed for the lock that's in place, so we can revisit that. I've asked staff to take a look at it, and we're going to revisit it the way it is. We may have to change the lock again, as we've done in the past, and then perhaps reissue the keys to whoever might need them for access. So we'll certainly
So you can let me know maybe in the next council meeting what the upshot of it is?
Yes, we'll advise you within the next council period.
Thank you. And my second one? If I can
Go ahead.
continue? Thank you. Can you give me an update on the situation for the Pleasant Beach garbage? I know you've been working with the region, and Mr. Barrick's been helpful in that regard, and I want to thank Dave for helping us in that area as well. So are we making headway? And hopefully we are, and what is it? And if we aren't, why aren't we?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Butters, yes, we are making headway. We had our meeting in September with the regional staff in charge of waste management, and also with their contractor, Mterra. The general manager of Mterra was at the meeting. We had a very good discussion. They did a site visit to all the fire lanes off Pleasant Beach Road. We had a good, frank discussion about the issues that exist out there. And we've started to draft a report. I was hoping to bring it to tonight's council meeting. Unfortunately, all the data on the roads, the road conditions themselves and upgrades that might be required wasn't readily available from the region engineering department as yet. So I was talking to Ms. Habermal today on the telephone, and the data is just about complete. I expect to receive that this week, and we will definitely have a report ready for the November 14th council meeting with all the information.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. I appreciate that. And my last thing doesn't have anything to do with Mr. Hanson, but it does have to do with the Sharkston Community Center. This Saturday coming on October 29th, there is a family Halloween party, and it starts at 4 and it ends at 7. There's going to be like some crazy witches there dancing. I don't want to like tell you who they are, but they're pretty wacky. So if your family and your kids want to come out to a whole lot of fun, Sharkston Community Center, 4 o'clock till 7. Mr. Bodner might help us out with some judging of costumes. It's just bound to be the best time ever. So you're all invited. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Doucette. Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2 items. Through you to, I think, Mr. Agolina. Property standards, we changed it some time ago, and apparently it's working very well, and maybe too well for the amount of staff we have. I'd like an idea of when somebody puts I'll give you an example. Somebody put a complaint in early August from what I've been told, and we're trying to get an idea of when this might be looked at, and as far as I can determine from staff, they haven't even visited the site yet to act on this. I hear now that we have somebody off with an injury. If you can't give me this tonight, Dan, can you give it to us for next council meeting? Are we getting jammed up? Are we behind with our new, aggressive stance we're doing on property standards? If so, it's understandable, but can we get out from under this somehow? Do we have options? I know you can't just, pop up a bylaw person. It takes some time, but is there something we can do if we are behind? And, if you know now, great. If you don't, the next meeting is fine.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Bodner, if you give me the address, we could talk after. I could look into it, but I will definitely get back to council. I can say that with the new bylaw change we have, it's extremely busy, and the fact we get more complaints annually. This year, again, we are up in overall complaints.
Right.
What we do is we act on kind of first come, first serve, and there is a stack that I know. But I will report back to council. But again, Mr. Bodner, if you want to give me the information this evening, I can follow up directly with you by email, and I will report back to overall to council as well.
Thank you, Mr. Aquilina.
And just on that too, Dan, you say first come, first serve. Do we have a way to put them in priorities? Like, well, some of the complaints that come in, and I don't expect you to share them, but some may have a bigger urgency than others. Are they just when it comes in, and then or is it kind of figured out to move them around a little bit if we have to react on one quicker?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bonner, it depends on what the complaint is, because some of the complaints are not all under the new bylaw that was passed by council. Some require process and the opportunity for the individual to comply. So it may be that we don't see action because there are other reasons why we don't get compliance. We do look at what is health and safety matter. Mm-hmm. Those get priority. Mm-hmm. The complaints we get from councillors and the mayor get priority. But a lot of the complaints are dealing with matters that are across the entire municipality. We don't give preferential treatment to one area over the other.
Sure.
It all depends on what comes in, and as I mentioned, it's busy.
Yep.
Okay, Ms. Bonner?
One more.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, you touched on it briefly. We had an incident at a medical marijuana facility on Cedar Bay, and the people that were directly involved in it, Robin and Peter Millibum, had written a thank you letter and asked the papers to print it, sorry, I don't know which ones, and it never did show up in the papers. So I said I would read their thank you letter because they have no other way of getting it out there to the public. So I have it here tonight, Mr. Mayor, and I'd just like to read it. It's just a brief.
Is it lengthy?
No, sir.
Okay.
Half the time that Mr. Maine had on his, stuff. I'm just saying, John. Yeah. On behalf of my wife and myself, I would like to sincerely thank whoever noticed something unusual at the greenhouse in the early hours of September 19th and phoned the police. Without that timely call, the thieves would probably have gotten away with everything they were stealing. It was definitely the scariest hour of our lives. The incredibly fast response of the policewoman in stopping the robbery in progress, I will never forget and always be thankful for. I would also like to thank all of the other police, detectives, and tactical team members for all their help and professional conduct. To all my family, friends, and neighbors, thank you for your continued love and support. We are very sorry that such a crazy thing happened in our neighborhood. We hope it didn't cause anyone any harm or inconvenience that day. I am so proud and happy that I live in a place where people still care and look out for each other. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Blessings, Peter and Robin Millibum. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bonner. Are you finished, sir? Mr. Bonner? Yes. That's it? Mr. Elliott?
Thank you, Mayor. Just 2 items. Firstly, I would like to tender my resignation from the Downtown Business Improvement Area Board of Management. So I can no longer make the meetings. And I've had a conversation with Councillor Main, and I would like to nominate him based on council approval to succeed me in that position. So I do believe we probably need to have a vote from council to
I think we should perhaps have
for that
a motion to accept your declining of the BIA position.
Yes, sure.
Is there someone to make that? Councillor Kenny? Councillor Demray? Motion to accept the resignation of Councillor Elliott from the BIA. Very good. Are you placing Mr. Main's name in nomination?
Correct.
For that position? Moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor... Oh, yeah, let's vote on his resignation first. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. The nomination of Mr. Main to fill that position, moved by Councillor Kenny, seconded by Councillor Wadner. Any questions? Any other nominations? Call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you for the time that you spent, Mr. Elliott. This is your second term, I believe, as
yes.
BIA. Well, thank you for the hours that you did put in. And I'm sure they were appreciated by the BIA as well. It's unfortunate when perhaps job commitments prevent you from fulfilling your position, but I think you did the right thing and moving on, resigning the committee. Okay.
I think Councillor Main will have lots of fun. As much as I did. Yeah, just one other item. During the little bit of rain that we had over the weekend, and especially Friday during the Prime Minister's visit, I was crossing the new corner at King and Clarence, and on the southeast corner, there is a huge puddle that develops. And that water's not going to go anywhere because I stood and looked at it, and it can't get over the humps that are on either side of it, and it's just going to sit. My concern is in the wintertime, thawing and freezing, and it's going to become an ice rink. If we can have a look at that, Mr. Hanson, because I'd surely like to get that rectified before winter. And I know it's a brand new asphalt and brand new project, but it's something that needs to be attended to quickly.
You take that under advisement, Mr. Hanson?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we'll take a look at it this week.
Thank you very much. Mr. Doucette, sir.
Thank you very much. I knew there was something, but I couldn't remember it. When he talked about rain, it popped into my head. Back to working out at Valet. All the rain this weekend. Guess what was in the workout room? All the pails to collect the water coming from the roof. We keep saying we're going to have it fixed. People keep working on it, but I keep seeing these pails. And I hadn't seen a good part of the summer. Everything seemed to be okay, and everything was fine. And I was asking the caretaker, everything was fine. And then on Friday night, Friday evening when we were up there, pails came up. Okay, so is there anything going on, Mr. Hanson, to make sure that this stops completely?
Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Doucette, 3.5 years of a leaking roof is a bit hard to take. We brought our own roofing consultant in some time ago and had an independent analysis done after several attempts by the contractor to make this right through a whole series of things, whether it was workmanship or partially design or whatever. We had our own consultant come in and made several recommendations in terms of how this can be fixed. And it was a 3-stage process. The first 2 stages, we were able to remediate a lot of the leaking. We found some pipes, drain pipes that actually come down into the building by the gymnasium that weren't connected properly. And of course, those were taken down, those panels were taken down and fixed. there's been quite a bit of work done on the roof itself in the trough area that is leaking. After all those repairs were done, there's still leakage that occurs at certain times. Some of it's attributable to when the ice forms in the trough. Other times it's just under rainstorms. So we've never been satisfied with the final results of that. The last stage was to do some, take the part of the panel out that's on the roof, do a sealing job as recommended by our consultant, put it back in. That work was done, and it still leaked after the last rainstorm. So after the last analysis we had, what I've done is I've authorized, I got quotations and authorized a separate roofing contractor, not the contractor that did the work, a contractor that's local, that's experienced in industrial type roofing. We've authorized them to come in and do the work and do some additional sealing after the last analysis was done. We're hoping, no guarantees, we're hoping that this is going to fix it finally. So this is done outside of the contract itself. We're bringing another contractor in. He's going to do the work. We're going to seal the membrane where we believe it's been compromised and try to get this to fix it before the November storms really start to leak. So that's an update on where we are now, and we've been working away at this thing, as I said, for 3.5 years, and that's how long it's been leaking.
I'll be honest, I thought we had it fixed. And then on Friday.
I did too, until after the stage 3 repairs, we thought we had it. That was the last recommendation, and then we had a storm about 3 weeks ago and it leaked again, so it's not quite there yet.
Okay. Are there any other council's inquiries? There being none, are there any members of staff who responds to previous inquiries? Yes, Mr. Aquilina.
Mr. Mayor, if I would, I have the exact amount that we paid the Wellington Humane Society. It's $165,978.
Okay, I guess we're ready to look at those bylaws.
Mr. Mayor, we bring the report forward for council.
Thank you very much. Moving on, for consideration of items requiring separate discussion, it's item number 1. Mr. Wadnick, could you make that recommendation? And
thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief Administrative Officer's Report number 2016-175, subject Bell Small Cell Master License Agreement.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that recommendation? Councilor Rudders, thank you. Discussion? Mr. Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a licensing agreement that Bell's asking us to consider signing so that they can move ahead with this. Through you, sir, to Mr. Louie. Is this time sensitive? Like, do we have to have it done before the next council meeting?
CEO Louie.
Through your worship, to Councillor Bodner, it's not necessarily time sensitive. They have been, the company has been waiting a few, probably weeks, 6 weeks maybe, for us to get this on the agenda. Finally getting it to the agenda tonight, but there's no reason they couldn't wait till the next council meeting.
That's great, because I got neighbors out there been waiting almost a year for fiber optics. I think Bell could wait another week. And in that week, I'd like them to respond to what's the holdup. They went gung-ho pretty much down Cedar Bay Road and to the east. They did our fire lane and a number of fire lanes, and I think they've moved right through to Fort Erie. But they have yet to do Pinecrest Road and fire lane 2 and 1, I believe. And I don't believe anybody's come forward to say what the holdup is. The people just want to know. They were promised that it was going to move ahead at a reasonable speed, but everything stopped. So I would ask council that we don't sign this until we get some explanation back from Bell. I think Councillor Main alluded to they're a big company and they don't really, have to respond. But, if we don't sign something, maybe that'll just encourage them maybe to come forward with some reason and maybe a time frame when they're going to get started. So I'd ask council to put this off, defer this to the next meeting, and in that meantime, that a letter go out from the CAO's office or the mayor's office just asking for that explanation.
Thank you, Mr. Bodner. Are there further questions or comments on this issue? Mr. Elliott?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, the CAO, are they under contract to the city of Port Colborne to install their fiber?
Mr. Louie?
Through your worship to Councillor Lane, I'd say no, that it's unrelated to city business. I think, in fact, it's unfortunate that the question came up because staff from Bell, and I guess this is to Councillor Bonner as well, staff from Bell did offer to come to council today. I didn't anticipate a question of this type, so I declined that offer. I have a feeling if she were here, the person that we're dealing with, the representative we're dealing with, would say that this is to do with the mobility network, cell phones and tablets and all that fun stuff, and less to do with the residential network. But having said that, I can make the request. I mean, she deals with Bell Canada Engineering, which I assume covers all aspects of Bell Canada services, infrastructure. Like I said, I think they would state that one has nothing to do with the other, but I can certainly make the request. And it is true, they're not beholden to us for their residential installations.
Yes, Mr. Elliott?
And that's my reasoning for asking the question, whether they're under contract to us. No. And how do we know what their reason for not completing the fiber install is? And to hold them to not sign a contract where they're going to pay us money to do something because a portion of another division of their company hasn't completed an install that Bell themselves are doing, I don't understand that. One doesn't have anything to do with the other. This generates revenue from us, and we don't know what their business model, what their case is. Maybe they're not going to go through with the complete install in fiber. Maybe they don't have enough. But that's not for us to say, you can't do this until you finish that. We don't normally do that with businesses, to tell them that they have to complete one project before we allow you to do something else in our town when you're not under contract with us to make the install. So I can't support that motion to defer this, to go to Bell. I mean, what happens if they don't respond to our inquiry? Do we not let them install their their mini cells? I got a problem with that.
Councilor Butters and Councilor Kenny, please.
This is an effort, to get information for residents of Port Colborne who were told one thing and that thing hasn't happened. And that's what this is. It's just an effort to get somebody's attention in a big, huge company that rarely, well, maybe gives a dang once in a while. That's all. That's what this is. It's an effort to get information for residents. So the person who's been dealing with Mr. Louie and staff, maybe they can help get that information for our residents. So, and like Mr. Louie said, this isn't that time sensitive. It can come back, give the powers that be a chance to talk to the folks at Bell and see if they can provide us with some answers. So I'm quite willing to put this off for 2 weeks.
Councilor Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have just one question, I guess to our CAO. Thank you. Why are they, it says in Port Colborne, Bell proposes to install the small cell antenna in Market Square and at City Hall. Why so close?
Sure. Through your worship to Councillor Kenny, these are not certain installations. They want to investigate the engineering potential of both sites. It is possible that they will choose to do both. The main reason for Market Square and City Hall is the influx of users of mobile devices at Canal Days and other festivals like even the Market Square. I think the main issue that Bell is facing is when large numbers of people gather at single points in time, and that's why they've chosen Health and Wellness Center, where there's hockey tournaments, H.H. Knoll Park, where there's fishing tournaments, and they don't want, I think in my own words, they're trying to get away from the unsightly cellular towers that nobody seems to like in the neighborhood and get into something that is more blending in with the streetscape and allows them to have many users at once, especially, for example, Canal Days.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? So, as I understand it, Mr. Bonner, that your recommendation is that we defer the execution of this agreement with Bell Canada for a 2-week period to allow representatives to appear and answer questions of council.
And they don't even have to appear, Mr. Mayor. If they want to send a some detailed explanation of start times or why they delayed installing that fiber. I think that's all we're asking for.
Well, they've offered to come. I think it may be better to clear the air.
If they're prepared to come give that answer, that would be great.
Councilor Butters, they're prepared to second that recommendation? Yes. Okay. Okay, Councilor Elliott?
Just a question on that. What happens if we don't get any response to it? What happens if there's no response?
Councilor Butters or Councilor Louis? Councilor Louis. CEO Louis.
Discussion is over.
I'm sorry again? I guess that's what the clerk is asking me whether we are deferring execution or deferring the report. I think it's deferring the report.
If we defer the report, that's what I would like to see. Yeah.
And that was seconded by Councilor Butters.
Yeah.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. One opposed. Item number 3, John Main.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Community and Corporate Services, Corporate Service Division, report number 2016-151, subject request for proposal, RFP-F-2016-01, financial information system.
Is there a seconder for that recommendation? Councilor Desmarais? Discussion? Councilor Main?
I'm trying to find it here. Yeah,
On page 51?
Yeah, we got it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Sinnes. Reading this over, and I got a request today from a ratepayer, and he would like to know exactly what benefit this is going to be to the taxpayer. Is it going to make his cost cheaper? Is it going to make your work more efficient? Or, because I read this through with the RFP, and I don't see much mention of cost savings for the taxpayer. It's just an upgrading to bring you into this next generation or next millennium, or what we call it. And the second question, I'll put it together, is this not a complete package, or is this one of these entry-level packages where we have to keep adding and adding and adding?
Mr. Sinnes?
Through you, Mr. Mayor,
Comment?
to Councilor Main. Answer the second question, this is a fully integrated system, so there's no additions needed other than if we want to, the whole financial package is there, unless we want to add such things as building permits. There are a number of things, building permits, cemetery software. It's just additional software that that individual departments could benefit from. So they do provide that. It's not part of this package that we're looking at purchasing right now. It's more of the whole financial package, which deals with replacing our old financial system, which was put in 1993. So it's providing more efficient system for us to work with, for staff to work with, and it's also providing us with more opportunities to bring us up to date, the 21st century if you want, with regard to e-billing, e-transfers, online billing, where we'll be able to email water bills, tax bills to ratepayers. There's also a package that's called a citizen portal that we could look at purchasing, which provides residents so they can go online from their house on the computer, bring up their account, look at what their taxes are, what their water is. They can look to see if we are on the building permits. They can look and see if what they're doing with their building permits, type of thing. So there's a lot of added benefit that we're receiving from upgrading our financial system. We'll get into more electronic funds transfers for payments of suppliers, so we can get away from a lot of checks. So we'll get into electronic funds transfers. It also provides us with the ability for staff to go on to the website and also to do time input for payroll purposes. It'll help us be more efficient in that way. They'll be able to see, for example, from an HR perspective, be able to see how much vacation they have left, overtime, sick time, that type of thing. So there's a lot of nice upgrades, I guess, if you want to call it, from what the system has right now. It's all Microsoft Office compatible, so it brings us into that era, and it provides, we'll get into barcoding of our inventory, so it should provide us with better inventory controls, and budgeting and variance analysis. One nice thing about this software is it's going to be able to provide us with more robust budgeting, where we could potentially get into 2, 3, 4 year of budgeting process, and also providing council with reporting, where you can go into the system yourself and look up specific reports on variance analysis, and it would be on a day-to-day basis. So those the reports that would be available are updated each evening, so that when you are looking at a variance report, it's the most up-to-date information that you'll get. So so it will definitely provide a huge benefit to the city going forward. Does it have a reduction in taxes or anything like that? No. It's a capital investment that we're looking at to replace our old system and bring everything up to date.
Thank you, Mr. Sanes. Mr. May, and then Ms. Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Back to Peter. So I understand all this, bringing it all up to date and making it a little bit more usable, friendly, and being able to go to all different departments and they'll all be able to use it. Will it increase, and this is what the fellow wants to know, or decrease staff in order to run this system?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. My voice.
Sorry, Peter.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, we won't. It won't be looking at. We wouldn't be looking at changing staffing levels or anything like that. Basically, it's providing us with a better service to the customer overall. And it's providing more efficiencies from a financial aspect. It's going to provide both council and department heads with the ability, I believe, to manage more effectively, from being able to see their budgets to actuals more frequently, and also providing them the ability to then ensure that they're on budget, and it's going to provide again, I think, our customers with a lot more ability to for payment options. For example, I know Councillor Kenny has been asking for many years as to monthly budgeting payment option, and this system will provide not only for taxes, where we do have a monthly budgeting system, but for water we'll be able to put them on a monthly plan also. So there's a number of different payment options that customers will be able to utilize for both taxes and water, and again they'll be able to get at some point online ability to look at exactly where they stand on their accounts.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Kenny, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Peter. Peter, on page 55, it says, beyond the above noted cost, additional expenditure items will be required to complete the project, and it names several items there, like training, hardware, an accounting project coordinator for approximately 4 to 6 months, and contingencies. Is that rough? Give me a rough idea of how much that little extra amount in there might be.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. If you actually turn to page 56, at the top of 56, it gives a breakdown of our total costs. So the Hardware, the additional hardware, which is our server and so on, is about $15,000. We're looking at having a particular staff kept on board for 4 to 6 months, and that'll be about $23,000 cost, and that's included in the overall budget. It includes HST. The contingency amount is the difference between, we estimated in 2016, our 2016 budget, that would be about $300,000 for this whole project. In 2016, we budgeted $145,000, so we'll be budgeting the balance of it, $155,000 in 2017's budget, because we were going to split it over the two years. And that's why the RFP has come later in the year, so we can spread it out over the 2 years. With that said, we'll be able to the $22,000. There's a $22,000 contingency. Because once you get into training and so on, it's hard to say that there could be some additional training that may be needed, and if everything comes in on budget as to what we have, we'd be looking at that $22,000 in probably purchasing the citizen portal, which is about a $28,000 software program, and that's the one that will give all the citizens the ability to look at their finances on the city, taxes, water, and so on. So that's what we're looking at. Total cost is is under the $300,000, but I'm requesting for council that we hold that $22,000 for additional software that we may want going forward on this project. The nice thing about it is we were able to, this whole project, we were able to work with West Lincoln and City of Thorold. We did all three of us went in on the RFP, so we were able to save on that. There's potential savings in staff training, because we're looking at some of the basics of the training being done together with the difference. For example, taxes. We can get all three tax clerks together, and we can get some additional savings from there. And so we're looking forward to that. And then there'll be some specific training to Port Colborne. So the nice thing about it was I think we were able to get a real good deal based on the fact that all three of us are going with the same supplier. And I know Thorold has already passed theirs and approved it. West Lincoln, they're dealing with it also tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you, Peter. Thank you.
Mr. Elliott, then Mr. Doucette.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Peter. We've been talking about this, I think, now for a few years, and I think you've been getting some pushback from council about, how do we pay electronically and everything like that. I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at the future modules that are included on page 56 at the bottom. And it's almost like, you know what, we really need to get those modules more than anything else. It allows citizens to, to me, a couple of them, the service request complaint tracking is huge. Once you put in a request or a complaint, to keep tabs on where it is ideal. To pay bills online, email address change, things like that. It becomes so much more user-friendly. This is something that we've really wanted to get towards. So in your report where it says, investigate the opportunity of adding other modules, well, I'd like to change the name of investigate to just go and get them, because it's kind of like buying a car in today's world without air conditioning or power windows. Like, I mean, you know what? Get the options. If you're going to buy it and get all the good things that citizens can use. Not only staff, but this allows citizens easier access to City Hall. And that's what we've always looked at, is how do we make it more seamless for people to pay bills and do things. And I'm especially looking at that service request complaint tracking. It may stem some phone calls from angry citizens to councilors about what's going on with my complaint and where are things, where do they stand. You can go online and you can look it up once we get this new system. So we'll look at those extra modules and let's get those as well.
Are you proposing an amendment to the record?
No, I just, let's get them once we get the system in place.
Okay.
But when you want to do your study on them, look at it with an eye towards.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Elliott, very good point in the fact that what we've talked to the supplier about is that the prices that were provided to us and the discounting that was provided to us, that would be available to us if during the process, because this is going to take at least 6 months to put all this in place, that during the process of implementation, that if we're able to implement any other modules, that they will hold all the pricing and the discounting for those particular modules. We were looking at the overall financial module, so that some of these other modules are department related. So once we if council does approve this tonight, then that will be a discussion we will have with them to set up some demos with the departments and have the departments take a look at them and see how that would work and if it would benefit the different departments in moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Sinnes. Mr. Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Sinnes. You and I have had this discussion many times where we are presently still working in the DOS system. I don't know of any place that works in the DOS system anymore. And I was always wondering, when are we going to move out of this slow, clunky type of system? And I understand why you kept it, because everyone understood it and everything else, but it's time to come into the modern world. This is it, and I'm glad to see it here, and I echo what Councillor Elliott has said. Let's get everything that we can use and that the citizens can use to make sure that it becomes user-friendly for them as well as us. Because something becoming user-friendly will help everyone, okay? So I just wanted to echo what he said, plus say, welcome to the modern world.
Thank you, Mr. Doucette. Mr. Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Peter. Peter, right now you can't pay your taxes with a credit card. Is that anything to do with our old system, or just because we didn't want to pay the extra percentage?
Mr. Sinnes.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Bodner. No, that has nothing to do with the system. It's a policy decision that we've made because when the high rates of the credit card charges that we'd be paying, if everybody paid by credit card thousands of dollars on their taxes, our credit card fees would just go through the roof. And so it would be an additional cost that we would have to add to the budget in order to accommodate that type of payment. But there are so many other payment arrangements that can be made with regard to whether it's online banking. I know most people would like, because they get points or they get different advantages of using their credit cards. But we looked at it a few years back as to what it would cost us, and it was a high cost that we'd have to add to our budget.
Well, it might not be quite in line with this. I'd like to see that brought up at budget again. I don't know. Frank and I, anybody else in business, take credit cards. The charges aren't astronomical. I think we need to look at that again. I don't think that's a valid argument anymore, but I'd like to see at budget time that brought forward again, and that ability. At some time when taxes are due, somebody might not be able to just quite meet it, and they might have to tack a little on the credit card to get over, to the next time. So I think that's part of customer service also, and I'd like to see us look at it again. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bonder. Any further discussion? There being none, I call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to item number 5, Councillor Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Planning and Development Report number 2016-172, subject tender 2016-2017 bylaw, Building Division, 237 Welland Street.
Is there a seconder for that recommendation? Councillor Kenny. Discussion, Councillor Demery.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. I have a question through you for Mr. Hansen. I would like to know, Ron, when, if this is approved tonight, when will we be able to see that building come down? Like, do you have a date? And just to further that, how long will it take to come down? And to what degree will the lot be cleaned up afterward?
That'd be Mr. Aquilina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Councillor Demeray, once the contract is signed and everything is in order, the company is wanting to move expeditiously. Part of the contract requires that the property be cleaned up and all the reinstatements in place. I can get back to council when the exact date will occur, but once council approves this tonight, it will then be brought to their signature and then back to us for signature. I'm going to say it's not going to be too long, but I will let council know exactly when the date is scheduled for.
Thank you, Mr. Aquilina.
Thank you, Dan. I look forward to hearing that. Thank you. That's everything.
Any other questions? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Dan. Dan, this cost is going to be borne by the city of Port Colborne. Is there any way to get any cost back from the property owner?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Elliott, the cost of this will be added to the property taxes to the property.
Is that it, Mr. Elliott?
I'll just get them to pay their property taxes.
Councillor Kenny, did I see your hand up? All those in favor of the recommendation? Opposed? Carried. Mr. Main, it's time for your notice of motion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to reopen for discussion on fees we charge for services rendered. Example, bread and breakfast inspections, residents involved in accidents on the Kings Highway within the boundaries of the city, and all other fees that could be deemed fire department services with a council-appointed committee.
Is there a seconder for that recommendation? Councillor Kenny?
Just a notice.
Okay, so you'll bring this forward at a subsequent meeting then? Okay. Everyone content? Okay. At this point, I'd like to entertain notice of adjournment. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Dash. Seconder. Councillor Elliott. Meeting is adjourned. Next is the regular meeting of Council 31-16, called to order, and that's regular meeting of Monday, October 24th. Are there any addendum items, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there is one this evening. The bylaw associated with the small cell master license agreement has been withdrawn due to the deferral of the report during the committee of the whole meeting. As a result, the remaining bylaws have been renumbered to suit.
Thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion to confirm the agenda. All those in favor? Carried. The mover was Councillor Kenny, and seconder was Councillor Weathers. Again, moved and seconded and voted upon. And was carried. Adoption of minutes, regular meeting of Council 29-16 held on October 11th, 2016. Entertain a motion to adopt those minutes. Moved by Councillor Demeray, seconded by Councillor Doucette. All those in favor? Carried. Determination of items requiring separate discussion. There being none, we call for approval of those items not requiring separate discussion. All those in favor? Oh, ask for a motion, please. Councillor Bodner, seconded by Councillor Dash. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Are there any proclamations, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. None this evening.
Are there any minutes of boards, commissions, or committees?
None this evening.
And consideration of bylaws?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That the following bylaws be enacted and passed. Bylaw 64119116 being a bylaw to authorize entering into an agreement with Diamond Municipal Solutions respecting the supply of an integrated financial information system. Bylaw 64129216 being a bylaw to authorize entering into an agreement with FMW RAC respecting the supply of an advanced budgeted software solution. Bylaw 64139316 being a bylaw to authorize entering into an agreement with Budget Environmental Disposal respecting tender 2016-17, bylaw building demolition, and finally bylaw 64149416 being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne at its regular and special meetings on October 24, 2016.
Call for a motion to approve those bylaws. Seconder, moved by Councillor Maine, seconded by Councillor Doucette. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Call for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Dash, seconded by Councillor Bodnar. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you for your attention. And this adjourns the meeting.